Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the Japan Q&A. I asked you to send me some questions on Instagram and also on YouTube, and you sent me a lot of questions. A lot of them were about life in Japan and how I felt about certain things living in Japan, as well as some of my own personal interests. I definitely will not be able to fit them all in one video, but I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm just going to get straight into them. If I sound a little weird, it's because my allergies are so bad in the UK. The pollen is just too much, and every time there's rain or a storm, I think all the trees just freak out and release their pollen into the air. So I am allergic to frisky trees. What do you miss the most about Japan? The food. 100% the food. I have a whole video about how much I miss food in Japan. So because I'm a vegetarian, I have so many more options in the UK. If I see meat replacements in Japan, I am shook. But in the UK, there are meat replacements everywhere. Like any kind of meat replacement you can imagine. But despite that, I still miss the food in Japan. Because firstly, I'm really not that bothered about meat replacements. I don't think they make or break a meal. I much prefer just tofu or like a vegetable. And secondly, that one vegan or vegetarian option that I would be given in a restaurant in Japan is miles better than the 30 vegan or vegetarian options that I would be given in the UK. It tastes so much better. Another thing I miss to go with the restaurants as well, the efficiency of the service. I hate the idea of having to ask for the bill after I'm done eating in the UK, which is probably why I like Nando's so much. Nando's has a great vegetarian selection, by the way, but in Nando's you pay first and then you get your food, and in the majority of places in Japan they just bring you the bill with your food, and it's just so much more efficient. I wish this was done everywhere. The service industry in Japan is generally just way more efficient, way more polite. Yeah, they've got the hone to tatamae thing, but it's much more customer friendly. If I buy something in Aldi in the UK, it just gets thrown at me, but if I buy something in Japan, it gets packaged up and handed to me like it's the most important purchase I have ever made, and I appreciate that. Another thing I miss about Japan, air conditioners. Aircon units. We basically do not have aircons in the UK. The majority of houses don't have them anyway, unless you live in a super fancy new home. To be honest, I have not come across one of them yet. The only time I've come across inbuilt aircons in the UK was when I was staying in hotels. I know it's raining outside right now, but this room is still really, really hot. If I was in Japan right now and this was the temperature of my room, I would turn on the aircon. So I really miss the ability to control the room temperature. Finally, we have the convenience. Things like train station lockers or vending machines on every corner. I also love the way there are konbinis everywhere. If I want a midnight snack, I can just go to a konbini and get a midnight snack. It is the best. And then the final thing I miss about Japan is the train system. The train and metro system in Tokyo. It is so much more convenient because unless you live in London or a city in the UK where the metro system is like heavily utilized, then you have to drive places. So the next question relates to the last question, but this time it is something you don't miss about Japan. I guess I just want to preface this by saying that Japan is not a perfect country at all. It is just a normal country like every other country in the world. I think Japan do a very good job of having a cute and wholesome image to a lot of the people overseas, and Japan can definitely be like that in reality. It's the most beautiful country I've ever been to. The people can be incredibly polite, but it also has issues that just make you want to say, why? For example, one very surface level issue: paperwork. The amount of paperwork that you have to do in Japan if you're living there is absolutely insane. And I do not understand why a country that has access to so much amazing technology also does not want to embrace that technology. In fact, when I was shopping for my gaming keyboard in Big Camera in Akihabara, there was literally an aisle dedicated to fax machines.
Scanner.
Okay, can we get rid of the scanning and faxing machines? Japan has taken an unreasonably high-tech level when there's no need for this. Wait, look at this. Look at this, John. It says that a bottle of water weighs more than this. Oh, it does. This is very light. So you can put it in your backpack.
No, but at a certain point.
You can have it on the go. It's a USB one. So you can literally have a scanner with you on the go. This is too much. In case you haven't heard, they had a lot of issues with counting corona cases because instead of emailing the cases to the prefectural governments and saying this is how many people we have in the hospital with corona, they faxed all the forms separately, which meant a lot of forms went missing, so they couldn't have an accurate tally of everybody who has corona. And then when they discovered that a bunch of people were missing, they were like, oh, well, we think 22 documents didn't go through the fax machine.
So it just does not make sense to me why Japan holds on to this really old way of doing stuff. I've made a lot of friends in Japan who are both Japanese and foreign, and a lot of them were unable to work from home last year when the state of emergency was in place because their companies just could not adapt to it. They still have this insane fear of new ways of doing things and new technologies. Even though to people overseas, that same technology, like just emailing paperwork, is the standard, it's the norm. But no, in Japan you have to fill it out by hand, you have to write it all out, you have to mail it. It drives me nuts. Like, I do not like paperwork. I like it even less if I have to sit down and fill it out by hand, and if I make one mistake I have to start all over again. It's just mad. It's mad. Another surface level thing that I don't miss that impacts me directly, personally, on a great level: the bugs. Oh my god, guys, the bugs in Japan.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're...
I just want to say, this does not include cicadas. I love cicadas because they are the ultimate sound of Japanese summer to me. Also, I think they're really cute, even though they're a little bit weird when they first come out of the ground. I also want to exclude spiders from this narrative. I like spiders. Spiders are very helpful to the environment. The other bugs in Japan are unreal. They are unholy. They are straight from hell. They are the demonic entities of the underworld. How do I talk about this without triggering myself? Can you tell I really don't like bugs? I don't know if this is going to be shocking for many people who've never been to Japan. Japan has a problem with roaches, with gokiburi. If you go to Harajuku or Omotesando during summertime, they will be there on the street because it's hot. If you live on the first floor of an apartment building, they will make their way inside your apartment building. It does not matter how clean your place is. It doesn't matter if your neighbors are spotless. They just exist. They are part of the ecosystem, and this distresses me greatly. So you're not just dealing with the unholy Japanese heat. The summers are so hot, the plastic food would literally melt in the windows. But it's the bugs, it's the roaches. Guys, they're awful. And they are unavoidable. If you come to Japan during the summertime, even if you go to the cleanest places, chances are you will see them. And I really don't appreciate that. We only have this problem in the UK if the place is like super dirty. But if you're walking around Tokyo or Osaka or anywhere in Kanagawa during the summertime, you are very likely to come across them in the summertime. So that is something I definitely do not miss from Japan. If you're thinking of going for a vacation to Japan, I recommend springtime before it gets hot, ideally before May, or autumn time, sometime after September, because it starts to cool down and your likelihood of seeing them gets less and less. So if you want to avoid them, maybe come during the cooler months. What is your favorite anime? So I really love Sailor Moon, as you guys know. That is like my #1 top favorite anime. And then that's my cat. And then I really love Devilman Crybaby. Again, one of the greatest animes I've ever seen. And I also like some older animes. For example, Escaflowne. I love Escaflowne. I never hear anybody talking about it, but it's such a classic. And yeah, the animation is like super old, but the storyline, like if you get into the storyline, it's really, really good. And I also really love Outlaw Star and Cowboy Bebop. And I know there was this whole like argument between which one is better. Both of them are equally classic to me. They both have their own vibe and I enjoy them equally the same. And also one that I haven't mentioned yet, which is Japan Sinks. But eventually I will make a video dedicated to my favorite anime, and I will include Japan Sinks in there and explain why I think Japan Sinks is a really, really good anime. The next question is similar to the last one, and it's what anime are you watching right now? I'm actually not watching any anime right now. If you think I should be watching an anime, you should let me know in the comments. But I've just finished watching The Way of the House Husband. It's really funny. I read the manga before the anime was released and I found them both equally enjoyable. It's a nice, easy to watch anime. Best places to get manga and anime merch. Okay, so I will be making a full video about this, but to just compress it down and give you like a quick overview, Ikebukuro in Tokyo is great for shoujo, otome, yaoi, BL, and then you have Akihabara, which is more for shonen or more action-based manga or anime or merchandise and like the really, really spicy stuff. And then you have Nakano, where you can get a lot of merchandise that's a bit more retro. It's kind of a good mix of both, but I find that in Nakano you can find a lot of stuff that you can't really find in the other two. I feel like Ikebukuro and Akihabara have the more recent releases, and then Nakano is better if you want to find the more retro manga or the more obscure stuff, but like you can come across a lot of great stuff in Nakano. Any tips for cheap flights and hotels? So basically what I do is I choose the flight with the most inconvenient flight path, and that makes it really cheap. For example, the only reason I was able to do the layover in China was because I chose a ridiculously cheap flight with a very inconvenient flight path where I had to spend like 19 hours in China, and it was very long and very tiring, but it was also really cheap, and it resulted in me seeing an another country. So I think that's probably the best tip I can give for cheap flights, aside from also not looking for flights during peak times. For example, like weekends or evenings, you'll see that there's some fluctuation in the flight prices. Clear your browsing history, clear your cookies, make sure that your flight prices aren't being raised because of your browsing history. Check on multiple devices, and that includes accommodation as well. If you're booking an Airbnb and you're always booking from your account, ask your friend or a family member or somebody with another device to check how much that accommodation would be on their phone, because chances are it would be cheaper. And I discovered this by accident when I asked John to check how much an accommodation would cost for X amount of time on his phone, and I've noticed that per night it was cheaper for him than it was for me. So I think if you keep using your Airbnb account over and over and over again, the prices for you will be slightly more expensive. So just make sure to check it from multiple devices and on somebody else's account, because I can like almost guarantee that the price would be slightly different. Okay, last two questions are kind of interlinked, and they're more about living in Japan and tips for living in Japan. The first question is living in Japan more expensive when compared to Europe, rent, etc.? This really depends where in Europe you're comparing it to. For example, Japan is much more expensive than Ukraine, but I don't think Japan is more expensive than England when it comes to living and expenses and rent, especially if you're living in the bigger cities. I think you can find affordable accommodation anywhere in Japan as long as you pick the right area. For example, if you're living right on the Yamanote line in the most convenient place in Tokyo where all the bars and restaurants and shops are and everything else, a touristy area, your living expenses and your rent is going to be huge. But if you're living somewhere like where I lived when I first moved to Japan, which was in the Itabashi ward, in the most inconvenient area ever, which was Nishitakashima-daira, really nice area, just super inconvenient, very far from everything. You have to change lines. You have to change from the Mita line to the Yamanote line to get to Shinjuku or Shibuya. But that accommodation and that area was super cheap. The stores around it were more affordable, the accommodation itself was more affordable, and definitely cheaper than my accommodation in the UK. And before I moved to Japan, before I moved to Tokyo, I lived in Leeds in the UK. So it really depends on the area that you pick and how much convenience you're willing to sacrifice, and also which country in Europe you're comparing it to. And the last question, which also ties into the previous question, which I will address fully in a living in Japan themed video, is advice for people wanting to live in Japan for a year. So just off the top of my head, there are a few things. Number one being, learn at least some of the language, because it's going to make your time in Japan so much more enjoyable, so much easier. You'll be able to soak up so much more of the culture. Another thing, do not worry about your language not being perfect. Trust me, as a foreigner, nobody in Japan will expect your Japanese to be perfect. You can allow yourself to make a lot of mistakes. So definitely try to learn some of the language before you come to Japan, but also don't be too hard on yourself if you're making mistakes. And the second one is save up some money. Even if you have a job lined up for that 1 year, just make sure you come to Japan with plenty of money. You'll be spending it on everything from your accommodation to your accommodation sign-up fees. There are like a bunch of sign-up fees in Japan when you are renting accommodation, to even paying for your paperwork and your health insurance, which you will have to have if you are living in Japan. I'm going to leave this video here, but I will make a separate video talking about tips for living in Japan or things to prepare if you're going to be living in Japan, and I will answer all these questions in that video. I've been talking for a very long time. I can feel my voice breaking. So I want to say thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you guys enjoyed it and found it interesting. If you did, please leave me a like and subscribe. And thank you to Kirumade for always providing me with some amazing clothes to wear in my videos. These are the Space Batgirl light drawstring pants and the Space Police Girl white body long sleeve tee. These are both from the Ayatakano collab store, and I put a link in my description box. Please check it out. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you guys have a great day, and I'll talk to you next time.